Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have our friend once again in the studio today, Professor Andrew Zamani, Professor of Clinical Psychology, head, once upon a time, National President of the Nigerian Psychological Association. You are a big officer in the African Psychological Union, isn't it?
Yeah, the president-elect of the Pan-African Psychology Union.
You see now, the president-elect of the Pan-African Psychological Union, and he is the director of the Institute of Governance and Development Studies at the Nasarawa State University, KEFI. Wow. Akuko, you know, as they say, I am with a very, very highly qualified person. Professor Zamani is not just an academic. He has also been in actual practice. He has worked in teaching hospitals, and he has his own clinic as a clinical psychologist. So we want to discuss the issue of what has been going on in our country. In Nigeria, in the past few months, Nigerians have gone through trauma. Just go around our roads. Queues for fuel. People are sleeping at petrol stations, queuing for hours, 12, 15 hours for fuel, just to fill their tank, and they are going to go again next week. Then queuing at ATM in front of banks, queuing for cash. And they may queue so much for cash all day and get only 5,000 naira. So they are coming back a few days after to queue for cash. And people have been suffering so much. Okay, then queuing for vote. We were told at the presidential election, we were told that the voting will end at 2:30 and then vote will be uploaded. People were there till 1 a.m. In fact, in some places, 5 a.m. before they could vote. And they were there. So Nigerians have been queuing for everything. The only thing we're not queuing for is air. Of course, there is in many places no electricity. So even the air is very hot air in many places. People are here. Now, so in the midst of all this, and especially after the announcement of the president-elect, when the results began to come in and people began to complain that perhaps in some places it does not reflect what they actually saw and what was announced in their polling booth, there's been widespread, in some quarters at least, depression, sense of frustration. I received several messages that began to frighten me. I called you to the studio for us to discuss what are the mental health implications of all this. I mean, before we came into this studio, I showed you some texts that I received, which are quite frightening. People saying that, Father, I am losing it. People saying that I am working hard not to have a mental breakdown. People saying that, I received one text that says, bye-bye to Nigeria. I can imagine what is going on in the mind of people. As a mental health professional, what do you have to say?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Father. It's really a very, very sad development in our nation. It is sad because, you know, we just had one more chance to shine in internationally, and I think we blew it. We blew it by the policies preceding the election, and eventually by the manner in which the elections were conducted and eventually reported. You are right that there are severe mental health complications right now. We're no longer talking about implications. We're talking about mental health complications. Yes. People who have lost it, and people who are on the brink of losing it. We are having a situation whereby the mental capacity of citizens is such that can no longer carry them for any productive function. And that is true. This morning, I was on my way to an event. I chose to take a cab. And halfway to the destination, there was this woman who was so very well dressed, obviously in her 50s, who did not know how to cross the road. Thank God there was a pedestrian crossing.
There was a pedestrian crossing.
Yes, and the lights, the traffic lights, gave her the right of way, but she didn't know what to do. She was just there.
She froze.
Yes, she just froze. Now, you can imagine the rage of motorists who eventually, were given the go-ahead to move. But they couldn't move because of this woman, who themselves were unhappy people.
The drivers?
Yeah, they are not happy people. So at a point, two drivers were abusing themselves, because of that woman. So the question I asked my driver was, why are they abusing themselves? He too could not fathom it.
Transferred aggression.
Apart from that, is the fact that we've reached a point where people are getting absent-minded. That woman obviously, lost concentration before she froze. Transferred aggression is there, but I think what we are even observing now is a situation of self-doubt and introjected anger. Because we are tired of blaming ourselves, we are tired of fighting ourselves. We fought in this nation for too long. Now people are blaming themselves. Why am I here? How have I contributed to this mess? That's the situation. And so, Father, many people are calling it off. They are not talking about leaving the country, but they are talking about ending it all.
Oh, suicide.
So we are having
an upsurge
of suicide. Unfortunately, our medical systems, our social development systems do not have facility to track these things.
To capture the number of people who are committing suicide.
No, we don't have that.
But you as a clinical person, you are getting some of these indications.
Yes. Incidentally, just a day after the presidential election was announced, the social media reported one teenager, a 19-year-old, who committed suicide.
I thought they said that was fake news. I was very relieved when I heard that perhaps it's
fake news.
Fake news, yes.
Fake news.
Yes.
Why is it fake news? Okay, if it is fake news, at least it was contemplated. Are they saying that we don't have young people who have that capacity? We've lost 8-year-old people to suicide. We've lost 12-year-old people to suicide. Is it a 19-year-old we won't have? This is a young man who said, look, I had dreamt so many bogus dreams for my life in Nigeria. And incidentally, thanks to my parents and their contemporaries for giving us an opportunity to do an election. at which my vote will count. And then the outcomes showed that his votes
perhaps did not count.
You see, now, it wasn't a personal grudge. I think he situated himself in the context at which he voted and at which results were being received. And because of the disappointments that were expressed at the way and manner the electoral umpire did the show, he decided to conclude that
this is not a place for him.
I cannot have it
so
better anymore.
People are saying that the process didn't appear transparent.
Well, you see, it would sound as if I have a personal opinion about the process. I choose actually to be private about it. But I want to call attention of our politicians and those who are very active in the governance process, especially the electoral governance, to the fact that if the whole world is saying this is the messiest they have even ever seen anywhere, then we have ourselves to check. Now, one area in which this issue is worth considering is the fact that the electoral umpire raised the hopes of people,
especially the young people,
and said, look, your votes will count. As you vote, it will be transmitted. And because people have developed so much confidence in the electronic system, people believed that the reason why they said it will count was that they were going to protect the mechanism by which votes will be transmitted. And then we wake up and we hear different things. What do they tell us? That we didn't actually say that it will be automatic.
That it will be eventually transmitted.
It will be eventually transmitted. And nobody said that papers will not be used. And so the question we ask ourselves is, in what way was this immediate past election different from others? Granting that the largest turnout we have ever had is this
one.
And yet, the figures don't show that. The figures don't show that.
No,
this was the largest.
The figures show that this is the lowest in the last 20 years.
So the question is, what have we been doing? What have we been doing? If after such a great mobilization, we have about 87 million people who collected cards.
They collected and went to sit down?
Yes, and they just went and sat down.
Something is wrong somewhere.
Something is wrong.
Either that all the elections we have been having before, the figures have been all fake.
I imagine.
Or that this one, the figures are also fake.
Yeah.
Because the amount of mobilization and what we who went to vote, what we saw in terms of crowds and crowds, to the extent that INEC could not handle many polling booths to finish at 2:30. In fact, many finished at midnight.
Yeah.
How did we end up with only 25 million, 1/4 of the people who collected their votes? Just about 1/4 went to vote.
These are some of the questions that are begging for answers. And unless INEC finds time to explain that, Nigerians will continue to be apathetic towards elections. So we have many people who have sunk into depression. because they have money, they can't access their money. They have needs, they can't meet their needs. We have many people who are already traumatized, and there is no facility to redeem their trauma. You know, who do you go to?
I mean,
everybody's busy.
I was at a petrol station.
Yes.
And that day I really felt bad. I wish I had some cash on me. I was at a petrol station. Somebody was in front of me. And then when it got to his turn and he wanted to pay, it was then he discovered that he couldn't pay except with cash. And he had no cash. And then he had to leave.
Oh dear.
He had to leave. After being in the queue for a long time.
For a long time.
He had to leave. I really felt sad that I didn't have enough money to give him to buy fuel, because we ourselves had problem with money. I mean, I think it was the same day we went to inflate the tires of our car, Richard and I, and then we had 200 naira. Now, and they said it was 100 naira per tire. And then we had 4 tires.
Wow.
So we now said, okay, do the 2 in front and collect your 200 naira.
200.
When we find another 200 naira, we will do the remaining.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, to imagine what we're going through.
Now there's a racketing. There's a racketing for cash. You have syndicates, you have black markets dedicated to selling Nigerian naira. Even at the filling station, when they accept you to pay by POS, the person who is doing that,
yes, is
syndicating for a black market somewhere.
Because I'm told that some petrol stations have 5, 6, 7 pumps, but have only one POS.
One POS.
Ah.
And then what do you see? It's a long queue for people to pay.
Why are our leaders making us suffer so much? Is there so? You remember that not long ago I recommended. I mean, I was at a Channel's interview. I recommended that, look, people who are seeking public office as president, as governor, as senators should be made to go through psychological tests. Because I'm asking myself, why are our leaders putting us through this? Are they people who are well? Could it be that we are dealing with mental ill health on the part of a number of our leaders to put a whole population of over 200 million people through all this kind of thing?
Yeah, first is the fact that we have mediocres in power, and therefore there are no leadership values. And because there are no leadership values, anything goes. That's why corruption thrives. Our president, His Excellency, President Buhari, has told us many times the kind of frustrations that he faces with the judiciary, while fighting corruption, for instance, with law enforcement agents, and I think recently he is not even sure of the quality of people that he has around him that should help him to fight corruption. I'm just giving you an example, which means that there is despair as far as the correct leadership, focused leadership for this country is concerned. So we have leaders who don't have values. We have, in fact, what even pains me most is that they don't have value for life.
Because people are dying.
People are just dying. You need to go to hospital now. Many people are trooping to the hospitals, virtually on life support. Virtually on life support.
Is there anyone that is keeping a track? I mean, you talked about our social development, whatever. Is there anyone keeping a track on the subject of this discussion, on the impact of all this on people's well-being, mental, psychological, emotional well-being? What are the immediate effects, mid-term effects, and what are possible long-term effects of what Nigerians are going through at this time?
Yeah, Father, I think you should give it a little time. Maybe as from August, between August and December, we should begin to have, research reports on these issues. Definitely, there are people in the ivory towers and in the healthcare system who are already researching this. And we are going to have a lot of information. Because you see, we can no longer sit down and watch. Unfortunately, the political establishment does not like data.
Because, I mean, what you cannot measure, you cannot plan for.
You can plan for.
Yeah.
You can plan for. They don't like data, but we have to face them with data. We hope that the next assembly will be so thoroughly enlightened that before any decision is taken, it will call for evidence-based research information. So that whoever proposes a bill is doing it from the point of view of knowledge. Okay, how do you explain this Naira redesign policy?
At the end of
How
the day,
could you just sit down?
At the end of the day, with the recent pronouncement of the Supreme Court, it means for 2-3 months we suffered and we achieved nothing.
We achieved nothing.
Hey, the amount of suffering. And if at the end of the day we achieve nothing and nobody goes down for it, nobody is punished for it, meaning you torture 200 million Nigerians and then it doesn't show that there's any dividend.
At the end of the day, it's their show. At the end of the day, it's their show. Now, what have Nigerians done to deserve this? What have we done to deserve this?
To spend Naira to buy Naira.
To spend Naira to buy Naira.
And then queue for a whole day with people running mad. You saw those ones in the banking hall.
Oh, sure.
With people running mad in the banking hall.
Going naked. Yes, sure.
And some people have died, actually.
Absolutely. So we really have a very big challenge. Children are suffering, and unfortunately, mental health facilities do not address children issues yet, because the capacity to deliver mental health services to children in this country is still developing. Mm-hmm. Many of those who could have done that have left the shores of Nigeria.
I mean, we have lost experts.
Virtually everybody.
Experts in almost every area. I'm surprised that you are still around.
Well,
thank God.
Who says I won't leave?
No, don't leave. You are our source of hope. The fact that you are around is you are a source of hope.
But these are the issues, with which to engage our political leadership. And I hope that those who are coming up will have the courage of Yar'Adua, to first acknowledge that our electoral system
is fraught with irregularities.
Is fraught with a lot of irregularities. Our expectations, I mean, the delivery was not congruent with our expectations.
They didn't measure anywhere
at all. And so we must go back to the drawing table and check what went wrong. But beyond that, Nigerians, having come this far, should not relent.
Good. That's where I'm going. That what are your words of encouragement to Nigerians? Some of who, I mean, I read some text to you, Nigerians that are losing it, that have not completely lost it, that are losing it. What? Just a word for them.
Well, my word for them is that they should keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. Yes.
And we should now be supportive of each other. We should be very conscious of our neighbors, their needs and their predicaments, and just lend a helping hand.
Yes.
Just the other day, I was walking down the street and somebody was sweating profusely and greeted me, So I asked, why
you
you
sweating?
said, look, I'm coming from a very far distance.
I had to trek.
Yes, and I'm hungry, and if I don't eat, I'm not sure that I'll get to the next place. No, I was so very lucky that I had just
some little money.
Yes, I had just collected some cash, after 3 weeks of being cashless from someone. And I said, can you take 1,000? It was as if...
Lifesaver. That was a lifesaver.
I saved his life.
Yeah. Yeah. So we all need to ask after one another. And if you see somebody withdrawing to himself or herself, please follow the person.
We need to show a lot of empathy.
Empathy, support for one another.
To show a lot of empathy.
Almost everyone is carrying a burden now.
Yes.
So we need one another.
Yeah.
At this time more than ever before.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
I've been discussing with Professor Andrew Zamani, Director of the Institute of Governance and Development Studies, Nasarawa State University, and former President of the Nigerian Psychological Association and President-elect of the African Psychological Union. And we have been discussing the psychological implications. He says psychological complications of the ongoing trajectory in Nigeria, the various hardships of the Nigerian people. We pray that we soon come to an end of these hardships and we can begin to see the light beyond the tunnel. Thank you very much, Prof, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.